Do I fear my daughters getting HG? Absolutely, all the time. I have a 3-year-old girl and one on the way, and it scares me, and it causes me a lot of grief to fear that when they are older and have their own children, that they might suffer the same fate and have HG. But I can hope that by the time they are having their babies, that medical research has caught up, that medical providers have caught up, and that there is awareness and education and support and better treatment plans for women that suffer with this beast of an illness. And, with HG, it's just devastating and isolating and traumatic, and you go through it. Even now there's information out there on it, but there's the people who understand it are the women who have gone through it and who are going through it. And outside of that, it's hard to explain to people for them to try to understand what it's like. It is definitely not like morning sickness, and it's often compared to morning sickness, which is a complete disservice to what women with HG go through. Hi, sweetie. You're making me lose my train of thought, cutie. Love you. Currently, there's a lot of misinformation that gets pushed around about HG, and there's still a lot of stigma about it. Please don't pick your nose. There's a lot of misinformation and stigma that goes around with HG. Clara, please stop. And, like, for instance, my husband was riding in the car on his way home for his lunch break the other day, and he told me that he was listening to this British woman talk about a book that she wrote, and she was promoting it, and it was about, he thought it was going to be about hyperemesis, but she kept referring to it as morning sickness, and she was saying things like, ginger and crackers and apple cider vinegar and these things that can help morning sickness, which there's nothing natural that helps HG. And she was saying things like, well, women with this severe morning sickness, they throw up upwards of 6 times a day, which HG 6 times a day, I mean, that's a good day. My worst days, I was throwing up 40 or more times a day. And that would go on for weeks and months at a time. So yeah, my better days, I'm throwing up anywhere from 1 to 6 times a day. And that's only been recently, since I've been on my 3rd PICC line. I take Zofran. I avoid drinking fluids, because the more fluid I drink, the more I throw up. I usually throw up. It's pretty much guaranteed I'll throw up when I have my IVs, just because of the fluid and the hydration. So anyways, this woman was talking about how she wanted to raise awareness for severe morning sickness, but the things that he was telling me, it was like she had no idea what hyperemesis was, and she was writing a book about something she didn't know anything about, and comparing hyperemesis to morning sickness, which you just can't do. They're completely different. It's not even like comparing an apple and an orange. It's, at least those both are fruit. Like, hyperemesis is an illness, and the thing is that because of that misinformation that floats around and the stigma that's still there, there's a lack of support, and there's doctors out there that still don't know how to treat it, or they say really harmful and hurtful things to women with HG still, and they blame it on it being in the woman's head and things like that. And there's just a long track record of every time something is wrong with a woman that the medical industry doesn't understand, the medical field doesn't understand, it's always in their head until so many years later they realize that it's a real illness, and then they find a way to treat it. And it's like that with a lot of illnesses that women have faced, and we just get treated that way far too often, that we're hypochondriacs or emotional or hormonal, or I mean, I had a male doctor one time ask me, not how I was doing, but how my husband thought I was doing. He asked me if there was anything my husband had pointed out to me about how I was doing. He didn't really care about my point of view of how I was doing. He wanted to know what my husband thought. And, you know, he was much older, probably in his 70s or older, and just kind of dismissed me as being a female that was probably sick because she's just an emotional, hormonal woman. So, anyways, I hope that for my daughters, by the time they're old enough and they're having their kids, they don't face that they don't get minimized and undermined by doctors, that they're understood, that they're supported, that there's treatment plans for them, that they don't have to beg for help, that they don't get looked down on, and that more people in the world understand that this is another illness that can happen in pregnancy, just like gestational diabetes or you know, high blood pressure and other problems that can come along and make pregnancies high risk. So yeah, that's my biggest fear for them, is that they'll face this, and all I can do is hope that by the time they have their kids, that it's better, that the research is better, that the help is better, support is better, awareness is better. And it's part of why this is so important for me, and I'm so proud to be part of this documentary, is because I get to be a voice, and there may not be a lot that I can do to, you know, speed up research or come up with some plan or cure for HG, but I can be a voice with my experience and help to raise awareness about the illness, and hope that, you know, things like this documentary, you know, they get the funds that they need to help research advance, so that in the future my daughter and other women won't go through such a hard time with it. And even for my son, he's 15, but if he chooses to get married and his wife and they have kids, it's something that you just would never ever wish on anyone. And honestly, the people who understand it best are the women going through it and that have been through it. It's so isolating. It's just, there's really, you can't, it's so hard to explain it to other people, because I think it's just like morning sickness or like food poisoning, where you get sick and then it's over. And it's just, with HG, it's just not over. I'm 31 weeks and it's not over for me yet. It's getting better than it was in my first and second trimester, but it's still going, and I don't have much longer until I'm due. And the light at the end of the tunnel is not for it believing that it's going to stop anytime soon, but that the light at the end of the tunnel for me is just waiting for my baby to get here, because it'll be over. The aftermath of what's going to happen after a second pregnancy with HG, and how severe it's been the second time around for me, I don't know. It was hard enough after the first HG pregnancy. I was scared to get pregnant again, and it was so traumatic, and I put it off for a few years. And at this point right now, I'm definitely, there's no doubt in my mind, I'm never getting pregnant again, ever. HG is a monster, and I don't ever want to live with it again. You know, and it's not just worrying about my daughters when they're older and they have kids. It's also the concern that I have over them being HG babies. You know, there's not a lot of information about children that are born to mothers who have HG. And there's some things out there that I've read. It's just like medications. There's this he said, she said thing going on. You know, it's like there's some things that show that kids that are born to moms with HG, they have more sensory problems, sensory delays, sensory issues, attention deficit disorder, and learning problems, and higher risk for allergies and other complications, and lower birth weights. And then there's other things that I've seen come across where they say that babies born to moms with HG are really intelligent. You don't know. We just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with my girls being born, to me having this illness. My 3-year-old has a speech delay. She does have some delays. She has some sensory processing problems. They're not super severe on the sensory side, but her delays in speech are, it's been tough, and she's 3 and she's at a level of speaking that she should have been at probably like a year and a half ago, at least. And it's getting better. We've had her in speech therapy, and she's in a preschool that helps kids that have other delays, whether it's speech or, cognitive or whatever. But we've had her in occupational therapy, speech therapy, craniosacral therapy. We've done chiropractic care, things to help her with that. She has issues with constipation. And so there's things that I wonder sometimes if it's because of HG. When you're so sick, especially in the beginning of a pregnancy, you're not getting all the nutrition you need and the hydration you need. It's really worrisome about what's happening with your baby. And, it's always ongoing. Well, babies are the most, functional, efficient parasite. They can get what they need. But there's still that doubt when you're so ill. What could they possibly be getting from me? And the second pregnancy has been so much more severe. I worry a lot about the second one, a lot, because of the meds that I've been on, the lack of food, the lack of hydration. The only time I'm getting my hydration is when I'm getting IVs and I have a PICC line. And even then, there's been so many long days of just throwing up. So I don't know what's going to come with learning about the, immediate and long-term effects for kids born HG. What their physical or emotional or social outcomes are going to be. I don't know. But as we learn more, I'll try to stay on top of that and just do the best I can for my daughters and be there for them regardless, because that's what you do as a mom. You're going to be there for your kids. So anyways, those are my thoughts on effects of HG on my kids.